Okay, so stuck at home or stuck in the studio. Sorry, making sure I'm rolling, because there's only one person here, and that's me. Isolation, of course, being the, or what's the word? Desperation being the mother of invention. Desperation? Necessity being the mother of invention. We actually had a couple of people, when we did the review of the 203 FE, the Hasselblad, we had a couple of people say, hey, can you review that 110 f2 lens? It's a strange lens. It's, well, here it is right here. And so actually, well, let's just walk through this. This is actually is an F lens as opposed to an FE lens. The FE lens had the electronic interface so that you could have the aperture control from the body. But this one actually won't stop down unless you stop it down manually for the metering, as well as I think also for shooting. So this is kind of an old school, very old school lens. And I actually wanted to compare it to the 120 f4 macro and the iconic 150 f4 you know, portrait, your standard Hasselblad portrait lens that everybody had at one point or another. It's those guys. They're almost exactly the same height. It's funny, I didn't even notice that, but they're almost, yeah, two different lenses. Almost identical shape. And then there's your 110. Well, I guess, let me be responsible and put a lens cap on the end of it. So, but anyway, but talking about the 110, the biggest draw for this lens is the fact that it's f2. And so it's 2 stops faster than either the 150 f4 or the 120 f4 CF lenses. And those 2 stops make a huge difference. I'm one of those people who really loves shooting wide open or as wide open as possible. Strangely, actually, I mean, I have 1.4 lenses for my DSLRs. I rarely shoot those wide open. But when it comes to medium format, and especially when it comes to film, I love being able to take advantage of the faster lens speeds. So so this is actually quite unique. I think, well, there was Mamiya did an 80mm f1.9. I know Contax did an 80mm f2, but I guess there's the new Fuji 110 f2 that I wanted to borrow from a friend of mine, but of course you're not allowed to talk to anybody, so that'll have to wait. This 110 is one of my all-time favorite lenses, and I absolutely adore shooting with it. And I'll show you a few examples of stuff that I've shot with it over the years. But it's funny, you know, that Fuji 110 has beautiful fall off at f2, but because it's autofocus and because they can have the camera talk to the lens, you can put the focus wherever you want, and it's magnificent, really. This is not autofocus, and unlike the Fuji 110 f2, this is not really tack sharp. Wide open, that's for sure. I think once you get it down to f5, 6, or f8, it is looking pretty good. Certainly no different than either of these lenses from a Hasselblad point of view. But wide open, it's pretty soft. But it's absolutely beautiful. And what I find as well is that it works well as a portrait lens. It works well as a, you know, a sort of a lens shooting kind of editorial context stuff. It's not so good for landscapes. It's just okay for macro. It'll focus down to, well, it says 80 centimeters, 2 3/4 feet, but it gets pretty mushy. And what I mean by that is that well, I'll show you a photograph that will explain it. You know, it comes in and out of focus really quickly when you get into macro, and the out of focus elements are just not that attractive. It works much better focused sort of the 6, 8, 10 foot range. At least that's my experience. And then there's really not much else to say about it. I mean, it's really just like ultra simple. The example that I have here is, I think, from the early 80s. Paid about 1,000 Canadian dollars for it, which, given that I paid $300 for that, and this is newer and in much better shape, it was a bit of a premium for this lens. But then that's kind of what you pay for. That's what they're going for. And I had the 203 FE, and I wanted the 110 f2, and they're pretty rare, so I didn't really have much choice except to pony up for it. It's, you know, it has, a friend of mine used to refer to lenses like this having mojo, and it does have a lot of mojo, a lot of character, a lot of interest, a lot of unique features, but it's not tack sharp, and it's not technically, if you want a lens that has incredible resolution and rendering, you know, it's 40 years old, you know, and so it is what it is. And but that's not why I shoot with it. I shoot with it because I love it, and because I look at the photographs and I think, oh boy, that looks great. Which is the whole reason why I shoot with a lot of my lenses, is that they are unique and they bring something to the table other than tack sharp. Because I've got lots of lenses that are tack sharp. I mean, my Hasselblad lenses, the Fuji, you know, the Hasselblad digital lenses, you know, I mean, are very clinical, but really don't have a lot of motion, don't have a lot of interest. And the Mamiya lenses for my Mamiya 6, same thing. I'm still struggling with the Mamiya 6. I'll probably do an probably do a review of the Mamiya 6 as well, you know, in my little sort of quarantine session here, because you know, the lenses they're just kind of clinical. They don't really have a lot of mojo. They don't really have a lot of warmth. They don't really have a lot of character. They're tack sharp and they have beautiful rendition and great color, but you know, as far as I'm concerned, they don't really add a lot to the image. Whereas the 110 really adds a lot.